So you're thinking of moving to Austin, Texas, and you're typically hearing the usual X, Y, and Z about the city. Well, in this video, we are going to be talking about the various things that nobody will tell you before moving to Austin, Texas. Some good, some not so good. And if that's the reason you clicked on the video, stay tuned. Hey again everybody, this is Frank with the team of agents at JB Govan Realtors. Each and every week we put out tons of new content all in regards to living in Austin, Texas, the good and the bad. So consider subscribing if you haven't already and ring that little bell to be notified each time we put out a new video. In addition to that, we love the reach outs we've been getting all the time from people just like you in need of our help when relocating to Austin. So keep them coming, do not hesitate, whether you're 9 days away or 90, shoot us a text, send us an email, give us a call any day of the week, any time of day. So let's get right to it and address some of the things pertaining to Austin, Texas that honestly just don't get talked about all that often. For the record, this is going to be somewhat based on my own experience, having lived here for a long time, and mixed with the input we get from the clients we've helped relocate here. And for starters, on my list, I wrote down not as nice as you'd think. And what I mean by that is not the city of Austin, not living here. I don't mean that. I'm more speaking about the people, but bear with me. So what I'm getting at is a lot of the people who relocate here are excited about the Southern culture that you hear about, the cliche, the stereotypes, the myths. It's all true. It's a very real thing here. Obviously, you have your jerks anywhere you live, but people inviting you to their garage parties, their barbecue cookouts, great service, kind drivers, that's all very real. People who will stop you when you're walking your dog just to wave and strike up conversation. So that is all a very true thing about living in the South, but when it comes to Austin, Texas, specifically, it might not have as much of that as you're seeking, and here's why. With Austin, Texas being one of the hot spots for relocation, not just in Texas, but in the entire country, naturally you're going to have a lot of people here who are not from the South. They are called transplants. From the Californias of the world, the New Yorks, the Oregons, the Washingtons, all across the country. And no, I'm not saying they're rude by any means or that these are bad people, but they simply did not grow up in this culture. So you ask maybe 5 people you meet in Austin, maybe 2 or 3 of them are gonna say, I'm not even from here. So don't get me wrong, Austin, Texas is still very friendly, it's still very nice, artistic, eclectic, weird as it likes to pride itself in being. But yes, if you're wanting something more authentic and genuinely Southern, you're going to have better luck looking in the places that surround the city, not so much in the heart of it. Which naturally leads me to my next point, which is a majority of the people we have helped and a majority of the people we are currently helping relocate here, they don't literally move to Austin, Texas. A majority of them prefer to move outside of it. So if I'm speaking to someone who needs to relocate to Austin for work or something of that matter, but you want a little less Austin and a little more Texas, that's where you're going to see people looking at Kyle, people looking at Bastrop, people looking at Manor, Hutto, Round Rock, Pflugerville, Georgetown, Leander, Cedar Park, all of these places that are the surrounding towns and suburbs of the city, but they feel much more Texan on their own. And it makes more sense because when you look at the city of Austin, you're looking at a median home price of over $600,000. With all the people flocking here, it's getting more and more and more and more expensive. But when you look at these other towns that are much more suburban, if you will, it's going to look more like $400,000, $500,000, $450,000, maybe even the threes in some up and coming boom towns. And somewhat surprisingly, it's not just exclusively the families who are looking to settle down. We've helped a number of young professionals, retirees, empty nesters. A majority of them either work from home remotely, or they work in the tech corridor, or they work out of downtown, and most of them are content with commutes looking like between maybe 15 to 35 minutes on average, especially if they're coming here from the San Franciscos of the world and they're used to maybe 1 or 2 hours for their commute. Next, for whom it may concern, we will briefly touch on the subject of the politics. And there just seems to be a little bit of confusion, which is why I bring it up. Some people automatically assume by default of living in Texas that everything's going to be super duper conservative. On the other hand, a lot of people automatically assume because it's Austin, it's going to be very, very liberal and Democrat. So Truth of the matter is, it's in my opinion, beautiful blend of both. Obviously, like much of the country, when you get into the very urban places like downtown Austin, it is going to be extremely liberal. That is the blue spot in the sea of red, which is Texas. And then when you're looking more towards the outskirts of Austin, such as Liberty Hill, Texas, or Georgetown, Texas, those places are going to lean more conservative, as is much of the rural parts of the state of Texas. And what's interesting is that when you look in between the city and in between these outskirts with your Cedar Parks and your Round Rocks and your Pflugervilles, those are going to be much more balanced. So you're going to walk down a suburban neighborhood, say during election season, and you're going to see a red sign, a blue sign, a red sign, a blue sign. So it is relatively balanced. That is something I like about living here, is that you're never really going to see too much of either extreme. And for the most part, people get along just fine. Now, moving right along, somewhat naturally segueing from the politics, another thing worth noting, whether you're into it or not, is that we are in the Bible Belt. So in Texas especially, you're going to experience a lot of Christianity. It's very much woven into the culture here. So what that means is you can simply expect, if you're going to go out to eat, say, on a Sunday in the early afternoon, restaurants will be packed. You're going to see Mormon churches, you're going to see Baptist churches, you're going to see Catholic churches, non-denominational churches, all-inclusive churches. Even though Austin is very much its own thing, kind of like a mini California of Texas, I say that loosely, it's still going to maintain that Southern culture enough to a certain extent where you're still going to see them rather frequently, and it is going to be part of the culture. Moving right along, I'd briefly like to touch on the subject of tech. Now, surely most of us, or at least hopefully most of us, have learned that Austin is the new hub for tech, with Silicon Valley essentially migrating here, creating what is called Silicon Hills. So you've got Facebook, Apple, Google, Amazon, Dell, all of these places, IBM, flocking here and creating new home bases here. But something I wanted to mention in addition to that are the factories that are either being finalized or are on their way to completion. One of which is the new Samsung plant, which is a $17 billion project slated to be completed by 2024. And that's going to be in a town called Taylor, Texas, which is kind of going to be close enough to Hutto, close enough to Manor. So you're going to see a lot of these small suburbs, these tiny towns, being called boom towns now, with massive appreciation. Investors are flocking there. People are wanting to get in before it becomes eventually unaffordable. Lots of jobs are going to be generated, further influencing the massive influx of people relocating here that we already have. Imagine what it'll do to the market. In addition to that, what I'm sure many of you have already heard about is the $1 billion Tesla plant in Southeast Austin. So that's going to be still close to places like Manor. It's going to actually be close enough to Bastrop, where that's going to start booming as well. So the reason I bring those up in this video is because, yes, we all know tech is here, but some of us might not quite know the extent of the tech coming here. And for some of you watching, you might be a little deterred or dissuaded because something that attracts to you about Austin might be its small city feel, might be the Texan feel, and you hear about all of these people coming here, all of these new jobs and companies coming here, and it might leave a bit of a bitter taste in your mouth. On the other hand, you might be excited about that, having worked in tech or having maybe your eyes on Austin, considering relocating here and wanting to get in, maybe not in the heart of the city where it's crazy expensive, but along the outskirts where it's much more affordable with a minimal commute. So, food for thought. I thought it worth mentioning for better and for worse. Now, quickly before moving on, let us know what you're excited about. Let us know what you might be nervous about. Let us know what questions you may have. Drop them all down below in the comments for us to get involved with. In addition to that, if we've been providing any value for you, we ask that you consider liking the video, as it helps our channel grow. Remember to subscribe and share with anyone you know who might be wanting to learn more about living in Austin, Texas. Next, something I'd be remiss if I didn't mention is the abundance of lakes that Austin has. Truth of the matter is, a majority of the people we have helped and are currently helping are inevitably coming from the coasts. And why is that? It's getting crazy expensive to live on the coast. And some people don't like the politics, some people want to come here, whatever the reason may be, a lot of people from the coast, right? And a luxury that most of these people have on the coasts is being close enough to the beach. Whether you're 5 minutes away or 45 minutes away, it's always an option. And here in Austin, the closest beach is 4 hours, and I gotta tell you, it's not even that nice of a beach. I'm sorry to anyone who lives in the Houston area near Galveston, but it's murky, there's seaweed, it's just, Texas beaches aren't even that great, but this one is the worst of the bunch. So what I'm getting at is, if you like to enjoy water, obviously Austin is not going to have any beaches, but we've got Lake Austin, we've got Walter E. Long, we've got Lady Bird Lake, we've got Lake Travis, we've got Lake Georgetown, we've got Lake Pflugerville. So regardless of where in the Austin area you are going to plant your roots, surely you are going to have a body of water somewhat within your vicinity. Heck, even Lake Travis, you could be living in central to West Austin near Bee Caves or Lakeway or the West Lake Hills, or you can be on the North Shore in a lake town, if you will, called Lago Vista, and that's going to be much more near the suburban areas of Austin, Texas. So whether it's that or Georgetown or Pflugerville or the heart of downtown, you have options to take a boat out, to go jet skiing, to go paddle boarding. So it might not be a beach, but I felt it worth mentioning. It takes a lot of people by surprise because they look at Austin, they look at Texas on the map, and they just see a big rock, you know, the Southern culture, farm and ranch historically. So food for thought, that might be your thing, or it might not. Hopefully we've helped you learn a thing or two more about Austin, Texas, and have furthered your own opinion and education about Austin, Texas. And if you find that you vibe with it, if you think it might be right for you or you and your family, do not hesitate, whether you're 9 days away or 90, go ahead and reach out to us, shoot us a text, send us an email, give us a call, any day of the week, any time of day. We've got your back when moving to Austin, Texas. As mentioned, each and every week, we put out tons of new content all in regards to living in Austin, Texas, the good and the bad, so consider subscribing if you haven't already. Ring that little bell to get notified whenever we put out a new video. Comment down below with any agreements, disagreements, questions for us. We'd love to get involved. Consider liking it if we provided enough value. Share it with anyone you know who might want to learn more about living in Austin, Texas. And until the next one, you guys, we'll catch you later.